Let's talk about wealth inequality in the UK. It's not just numbers, it's the gap between the super rich and everyone else. Some have more money than they could ever spend, while others struggle to put food on the table. This isn't about envy, it's about fairness and opportunity. The UK isn't known for its egalitarian paradise. Billionaires jet off to space while essential workers rely on food banks. So buckle up, because we're diving into the world of wealth inequality in the UK. Wealth inequality isn't just about bank account zeros, it has real consequences. When wealth is concentrated, it stifles economic growth and undermines democracy. The ultra-wealthy can lobby for policies that benefit them, furthering inequality. Wealth inequality can lead to social unrest and instability. When people feel the system is rigged, it creates division and resentment. It's like a pressure cooker. Eventually, it's going to blow. How did the UK become so unequal? It's a mix of historical legacies, policy choices, and global economic forces. Globalization has prioritized profits over people, leading to job losses and a widening gap. Technological change has displaced jobs, impacting lower-paying manual jobs the most. Government policies like tax cuts for the wealthy have widened the gap. The consequences permeate every aspect of British society, from education to healthcare. Remember those factory jobs that paid a decent wage? Globalization changed that. Companies moved jobs overseas for cheaper labor, hurting local communities. Globalization isn't all bad, but it created winners and losers. Those already struggling often ended up on the losing side, unable to adapt. This race to the bottom keeps wages stagnant and weakens workers' bargaining power. Technology has revolutionized our lives, but also automated jobs at an alarming rate. Robots are taking over, not just in factories, but in offices and hospitals too. New jobs require specialized skills that many displaced workers lack. This skills mismatch drives inequality, leaving some behind. It's like being on a speeding train. Some are comfortably seated, while others cling on for dear life. Have policymakers done enough to address wealth inequality? There's room for improvement. Tax cuts for the wealthy often exacerbate inequality instead of trickling down. Cuts to education, healthcare, and social safety nets disproportionately impact lower incomes. A strong social safety net provides opportunities and support to those who need it most. Weakening it increases the risk of people falling through the cracks. Education is a ladder of opportunity, but missing rungs can limit prospects. Kids from wealthy families get a head start with top-notch schools and private tutoring. Disadvantaged kids face underfunded schools and lack resources. It's not impossible to break through, but it's much harder when the system is rigged. Quality education is crucial for social mobility, but underfunded schools can't provide it. Healthcare is another area where wealth plays a significant role. The NHS is remarkable but under immense pressure, affecting those on lower incomes the most. Wealthier individuals can opt for private healthcare, skipping queues and accessing specialized treatments. This two-tiered system exacerbates health inequalities. Those with fewer resources face longer recovery times and struggle to afford medications. Social mobility is becoming increasingly difficult in the UK. Wealth inequality creates a sticky floor at the bottom and a glass ceiling at the top. Those born into poverty face an uphill battle, while those born into privilege have an advantage. Missing rungs on the education ladder and lack of affordable housing limits social mobility. It's like climbing a mountain with a dwindling supply of oxygen. The higher you climb, the harder it gets. High wealth inequality erodes trust and undermines social cohesion. When people feel the system is rigged, it breeds resentment and distrust. This division creates an us versus them mentality, polarizing society. Erosion of trust impacts our political system, leading to cynicism and apathy. It's like a slow-burning fuse. If we're not careful, it could ignite into something far more destructive. All right, let's talk about London, a city of iconic landmarks, bustling markets, and eye-watering wealth disparity. Yeah, London's a bit of a paradox. It's a global financial hub, attracting billionaires and high flyers from around the world. But it's also a city where poverty casts a long shadow, hidden in plain sight amidst the glitz and glamour. Walk through the streets of Kensington and Chelsea, and you'll see gleaming mansions, luxury boutiques, and sports cars that cost more than most people's homes. It's like stepping into a different world, one where money flows freely, and champagne wishes and caviar dreams are the norm. But venture a few miles east to Tower Hamlets or Newham, and the picture changes dramatically. Here, you'll find overcrowded housing, struggling families, and food banks working overtime to meet the needs of those struggling to make ends meet. It's a stark reminder that London's wealth isn't trickling down, it's pooling at the top. This stark contrast isn't just about aesthetics, it reflects deep-rooted inequalities in opportunity, health, and well-being. Life expectancy in London can vary by as much as a decade depending on your postcode. That's right, where you live in this city can literally impact how long you live. Now let's zoom out from London and look at the bigger picture. You've probably heard about the North-South divide, a persistent gap in economic prosperity between the north and south of England. It's a tale as old as time, or at least as old as the Industrial Revolution, and it's still shaping the UK's economic landscape today. Historically, the north was the engine room of the UK economy, fueled by industries like coal mining, shipbuilding, and manufacturing. But as these industries declined, so did the economic fortunes of many northern towns and cities. Jobs were lost, factories closed down, and communities struggled to adapt to a changing economic reality. Meanwhile, the South, particularly London and the South East, benefited from the rise of the service sector, finance, and technology. These industries thrived, attracting investment, creating jobs, and driving up property prices. This created a self-reinforcing cycle, with wealth and opportunity increasingly concentrated in the South, while the North lagged behind. Now, this isn't to say that everyone in the South is rolling in it, or that there aren't pockets of deprivation. But the overall picture is clear. The gap between the North and South remains stubbornly wide, impacting everything from wages to life expectancy. All right, we've talked about the UK, but let's not forget, wealth inequality isn't just a British problem, it's a global phenomenon. From the sprawling favelas of Rio de Janeiro to the gated communities of Mumbai, the gap between the haves and have-nots is a defining feature of our world today. Take a country like South Africa. Despite its natural beauty and vibrant culture, it's grappling with some of the highest levels of wealth inequality in the world. The legacy of apartheid still casts a long shadow, with a small, predominantly white elite controlling a disproportionate share of the country's wealth. Or consider Brazil, a country of immense potential, yet plagued by stark inequalities. While the wealthy enjoy a life of luxury, millions live in poverty, struggling to access basic necessities like healthcare, education, and sanitation. This disparity fuels social unrest, crime, and a sense of hopelessness among those left behind. These are just a few examples, but the story is remarkably similar in many parts of the world. Globalization, technological change, and policy choices have all played a role in shaping this global landscape of inequality, and the consequences are far-reaching, impacting everything from economic growth to political stability to social cohesion. Wealth inequality is real, pervasive, and hurting all of us. But we're not powerless. We can do something about it. Policymakers shape our laws and institutions. It's time to demand fair policies. Let's start with taxes. We need a progressive tax system. Everyone should contribute their fair share. Think of it like a group project. Everyone benefits. We need to invest in education, equip everyone with skills and knowledge, strengthen the safety net, invest in housing, healthcare, and social services. Now, while these policy changes are important, they're really just treating the symptoms. To truly address wealth inequality, we need to go deeper and tackle the root causes. Remember those global forces, technological changes, and historical legacies? Yeah, those aren't going away anytime soon, but we can find ways to mitigate their negative impacts and create a more just and equitable system. We need to rewrite the rules of the global economy so that it works for everyone. That means promoting fair trade practices and cracking down on tax havens, ensuring that corporations pay their fair share. It's time to level the playing field and create a system where everyone has a chance to succeed. We need to ensure that technological advancements benefit everyone. Investing in education and training programs is crucial. Exploring new economic models, like universal basic income, could provide a safety net. We need to address systemic inequalities and promote diversity and inclusion, creating a level playing field where everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed. Section 3. It's on us, from awareness to action. Now, here's the thing about all of this. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time, effort, and a whole lot of collective action. But it starts with each and every one of us. We need to educate ourselves about the issue, engage in constructive conversations, and hold our leaders accountable. Don't be afraid to talk about wealth inequality. It's not a comfortable topic, but it's an essential one. Talk to your friends, your family, your colleagues. Share what you've learned, challenge misconceptions, and encourage others to get involved. The more people who are aware of the issue, the more pressure we can put on those in power to take action. Get involved in your community. Support organizations that are working to combat poverty, promote social justice, and create a more equitable society. Volunteer your time, donate to causes you care about, and make your voice heard. Every little bit helps. And most importantly, vote. Elections matter. Choose leaders who prioritize addressing wealth inequality and creating a fairer society for all. Hold them accountable for their promises and make sure they know that this issue is important to you. Remember, change doesn't happen by accident. It happens when people come together, demand better, and fight for a more just and equitable world. So let's get to work. Section 1. The choice before us, a fairer future or deeper divides. So there you have it. We've journeyed through the winding streets of wealth inequality, from the gleaming towers of London's financial district to the struggling towns in the north. We've seen how globalization, technology, and yes, even our own government's policies have all played a part in creating this chasm between the haves and the have-nots. We've talked about the consequences, the erosion of social mobility, the strain on public services, the simmering resentment that threatens to boil over. We've seen how it affects everything from education and healthcare to our very democracy. And it's tempting, isn't it, to throw our hands up in despair and say, well, that's just the way it is. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be this way. We're not just passive passengers on this runaway train of inequality. We have a choice. We can choose to accept this status quo, to normalize the ever-widening gap between the rich and the rest of us. Or we can choose to fight back. We can choose to demand better from our leaders, to push for policies that prioritize fairness and opportunity for all. We can choose to support businesses that pay their workers a living wage, to invest in our communities, to bridge the divides that threaten to tear us apart. Section 2. Reimagining our future. Building a UK for everyone. Imagine a UK where every child has access to quality education. Imagine a UK where healthcare is truly universal. Imagine a UK where everyone has a roof over their head and a dignified job. This isn't a utopian fantasy, it's a future we can build. It starts by rejecting the narrative that wealth inequality is inevitable. Recognize that a system benefiting the few is unsustainable. Reimagine our economy as a collaborative effort. Create an economy that works for everyone. Revitalize our democracy, ensuring everyone's voice is heard. Section 3. Time to act. Because silence is not an option. The choice is ours. We can continue down this path of ever-increasing inequality, where the gap between the rich and the poor becomes a chasm, threatening the very fabric of our society. Or we can choose a different path, one that leads to a fairer, more just, and more equitable UK. It won't be easy. It will require hard work, difficult conversations, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. But the alternative, simply accepting this deeply flawed system, is simply not an option. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to work. Let's raise our voices, demand better, and create a UK where everyone, regardless of their background, has a chance to thrive. Because silence is not an option. The time for action is now.